In this video, I'm finishing the BMP-2 build with a minimalistic base and figure. This isn't meant to be political, just a commentary that life goes on during war. Hopefully. So that's how I'm starting this new year, with hope and excitement to really push myself to make the best builds and videos yet. Here I am trying a new technique I learned from the Diorama Devil channel. I'm cutting apart the figures at the joints, inserting wires, and then I can bend them, kind of like action figures. However, the figures I have aren't really appropriate for the scene I'm trying to convey, so I had to do a fair bit of modification just to the parts themselves to make them look more civilian. I really enjoyed the modification process. However, it did destroy much of the detail around the areas I was working on. This wasn't a huge problem with the legs, since they'll be mostly covered, but in other more noticeable areas, you have to pay attention to what you can save. This is a plastic figure, and it already didn't have the most crisp details. Any imperfections will really show in the painting process, so be careful. All this might seem like a lot of unnecessary work, but it's important for the storytelling process. More importantly, it gave me the opportunity to get the position of each body part that came in contact with the bike exactly touching. This way, it looked like the figure was riding the bike and not just floating on top of it. With the individual appendages complete and where I wanted them, it was time to fill all the joints and gaps. To do this, I used Tamiya epoxy putty, and I did my best to replicate all the details that would have been there if it were molded this way originally. I used a variety of sculpting tools, including metal scrapers and silicone sculptors, and a fair bit of water to keep things from sticking. Everything was assembled the same way, with wire in every joint. Even with this figure displayed in a conflict zone, I didn't want them to have a weapon. Instead, I wanted them holding onto a bicycle handle. This meant repositioning the hand. So, I took the opportunity to give the wrist a little bit more detail by hollowing out the coat sleeve and repositioning the hand. The rest of the process was pretty straightforward, adding little details where I could to bring the figure to life. I added the petals at the end just to make sure that I could again make them come in contact with the figure to make it look that much more realistic. I decided on a sort of hybrid glazing technique for painting the figure. Pretty standard stuff. As you may know, I don't claim to be the best at figure painting, but I still like to challenge myself. And what sort of example would I be setting if I only did the things that I felt like I was best at? This would also get sort of boring. And speaking of boring, I'd like to take this opportunity to give you a little update on the channel. I guess boring isn't the right word, more like a little burnt out. Not of modeling, or making videos for that matter. The schedule, however, is a bit exhausting, and I only try and put out a video every other week. But even at this pace, to have something interesting to shoot, build, paint, or design, then edit and voiceover is getting extremely repetitive. This isn't even my full-time job either. So in an effort to fix this, I'm going to modify my upload schedule. Oh wait, don't go. I have good reason for this. I have some really epic builds planned, and a ton of new techniques I want to try and explore. This feels like the only possible way I can accomplish all of these goals. So what does this mean for you, the viewer? And why am I even telling you this? The whole reason I started this channel was to become more involved in the model building community, not to become the largest channel on the platform. However, it's easy to get swept up in views and other metrics when you start a channel. But I don't believe that this is the best way to serve our community or you, the viewer. I want to show you my best work, make the best videos, and continue to grow and learn so I can pass that on to you. All this to say, this year is going to be all about quality over quantity. So please don't leave. Here, I'm using UV resin to give the lights on the bike a glass-like look. I'm excited to try this on other builds because I really like the results. After the asphalt terrain paste was dry on the base, I gave it a good sanding to level off some of the rough texture. Then, it was on to reproducing a sidewalk out of foam, then detailing it in the usual manner. I've been wanting to try this since my wife bought a new coffee grinder and let me have the old one. I cut up bits of sprue, styrene, and cork and loaded them in. It's a good thing she doesn't want it back though, because the results were a little unexpected. Never mind that. I decided I wanted a bit more asphalt. And then I added my homemade potpourri, debris. Remember to make sure nothing gets in the way of the tracks contacting the roadway. We don't want any floating tracks. Then, I locked everything down with matte Mod Podge heavily diluted in water. I like to spray everything with isopropyl alcohol before and after the glue to break the surface tension. Then, I sop up the excess with a rolled up paper towel to speed the drying process. Finally, I added some crumpled plastic bag and twisted wire for some interest and realism. I base coated the ground with AK's Muddy Ground terrain paste, and I really tried to blend that into the roadway to show this area hadn't been taken care of despite being a roadway that is still in use. I used white and yellow to paint the curb as I saw in my reference photos. And then I coated the remaining cork with AK's asphalt terrain paste, so that would look like it was part of the road surface. Then I used oils to hand paint all of the different pieces of debris, and I tried to use varying colors to give it more interest and make it look a little bit more realistic. This process took a little bit of time, but it was pretty relaxing and well worth the effort. Next, I added some more Mod Podge with some pre-made tufts of grass, and then a smattering of other grass and small plants to give it a little bit of an overgrown look. If you ever look at asphalt in your town, you'll probably notice that it is not black. In fact, it is multiple colors. So I speckled the ground to give it that look. Then I wanted to recreate the charred, burnt look that you see in all the reference photos of burnt out vehicles. So I used white oil paints to blend in different grays and bright whites all around the burnt out areas of the tank. I also used oils to paint the groundwork, and I found this to give some really great results that I wasn't expecting. So I'll certainly be using this technique more in the future. And finally, I painted the sunflowers, a symbol of life in an otherwise desolate scene. And so with that, the BMP build comes to an end. If you'd like to purchase the STL files to build this destroyed BMP yourself, you can find them on my Etsy page. Other than that, thanks for watching. See ya.